The first person to see her thought she was a trick of the tide. Fisherman Kareem had spent 40 years watching the sea breathe, its rhythms, its moods, its deceptions. He knew how the light could bend against the waves at dawn, how shadows could resemble shapes that weren't there. So when he saw something standing where the water met the sand, unmoving as the tide curled around it, he almost turned away. Almost. Because shadows didn't shimmer. He dropped his net. The horizon glowed faint gold as the sun prepared to rise, casting thin ribbons of light across the water. The figure stood waist-deep in the surf, long strands of something. Hair, he realized, clinging to her back like wet silk. Her skin reflected the dawn not like human flesh, but like glass catching light. Kareem's breath caught. "Hey," he called out instinctively. "You'll drown out there." The figure turned slowly. Even from a distance, he felt something wrong. Not frightening, just wrong in a way that made his instincts stutter. She stepped forward. The water didn't resist her. It seemed apart. Each step she took was deliberate, as though she were learning how to walk. The waves curled at her ankles, but never knocked her off balance. When she reached the shore, she paused, looking down at the sand beneath her feet as if it were something unfamiliar. Kareem approached cautiously. "Are you all right?" he asked, voice softer now. She didn't answer. Her eyes lifted to meet his. They weren't a color he could name. He had seen blue, green, gray, but hers shifted subtly, like shallow water reflecting a moving sky. For a moment, he forgot how to speak. "Where did you come from?" he asked finally. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like two sounds layered together, one human, one something else. "I arrived." That was all. Within hours, the entire coastal village knew. By noon, people had gathered near the shore, whispering, pointing, keeping their distance. Some claimed she was a survivor of a shipwreck. Others insisted she was something older, something not meant to be understood. No one had seen a ship. No one had reported missing passengers. And no one could explain how she had come out of the sea without a single sign of struggle. She stayed where Kareem had first seen her, sitting on the sand, watching the water. She refused food at first. When offered clothes, she examined them with quiet curiosity before allowing herself to be dressed. She didn't resist. She simply observed, as though everything happening to her was part of an experiment. A young schoolteacher named Ayan arrived in the afternoon. Unlike the others, he didn't whisper. He walked straight toward her, notebook in hand, eyes filled not with fear, but fascination. "Hello," he said gently. She turned to him. "Hello," she echoed, her voice smoother now, less layered than before. "You can understand me?" "Yes." "That's good," he said, crouching a few feet away. "Can you tell me your name?" She paused. The question seemed to confuse her. "I do not have one," she said after a moment. Ayan blinked. "Everyone has a name." She tilted her head slightly. "Then I do not understand everyone." There was no defiance in her tone, only honesty. Ayan scribbled something in his notebook. "All right," he said. "Then we'll give you one. How about Mira?" She repeated it slowly. "Mira." The words seemed to settle into her, like a stone sinking into still water. "Yes," she said. "I am Mira." Days passed. Mira stayed in the village. She learned quickly, too quickly. Within a week, she could speak fluently, her strange, layered voice fading into something almost human. She observed everything: how people ate, how they spoke, how they laughed. She mimicked behaviors with unsettling precision, yet there was always a slight delay, as if her understanding lagged just behind her actions. Ayan became her guide. He spent hours with her each day, teaching her language, explaining customs, answering her endless questions. "Why do humans sleep?" she asked once. Because we get tired. Why do you get tired? He hesitated. Because that's how our bodies work. She seemed dissatisfied with that answer. Your systems are inefficient, she said matter-of-factly. He laughed nervously. Yeah, we know. But Mira wasn't joking. At night, she would return to the shore. No matter where she was during the day, no matter what she was doing, she always ended up back at the sea by nightfall. She would stand at the water's edge, staring out into the darkness for hours. Watching. Waiting. Ion noticed. Are you expecting someone? He asked her one evening. She didn't answer immediately. Yes, she said finally. Who? She looked at him. I do not know. The first strange event happened on the 10th day. A storm rolled in unexpectedly. The sky darkened within minutes, the wind rising to a violent howl. Fishermen rushed to secure their boats. Villagers barricaded their homes. The sea churned violently, waves crashing against the shore with unnatural force. And Mira walked into it. Ion saw her. Mira, he shouted, running after her. Stop. But she didn't. She stepped into the raging water as though it were calm. The waves surged toward her, and then broke apart. Ion froze. It wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't luck. The water was avoiding her. Mira, he shouted again. She turned. The storm raged around her, but within a few feet of her body, the water flattened, the wind softened, as if reality itself bent in her presence. Do not be afraid, she said. I'm not afraid, he lied. Just, what are you doing? She looked out at the horizon. They are close. Who? But before she could answer, the ocean split. Not in a violent way. Not like something tearing apart. More like something opening. A deep, glowing line stretched across the surface of the water, pulsing with soft blue light. The waves stilled, the wind died, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Something was rising. Ion staggered back. No, that's not possible. But it was happening. A structure, massive and smooth, emerged from beneath the sea. It wasn't metal, not entirely. It shimmered like Myra's skin, reflecting light in ways that didn't make sense. It was alive. Mira stepped forward. They have arrived, she said. Ion grabbed her arm. Mira, what is that? She looked at him, and for the first time, there was something in her expression that resembled regret. My origin, she said. The structure hovered above the water, silent and immense. From its surface, shapes began to descend, figures similar to Mira, but taller, their forms more fluid, less defined. Ion felt his knees weaken. What are they? He whispered. Mira didn't answer right away. They are what I was meant to become, she said finally. One of the figures approached. Its movement was smooth, almost gliding rather than walking. When it reached the shore, it stopped a few feet from Mira. There was no sound, but Mira reacted as if something had been said. You took longer than expected, she said softly. Ion stared. Are they talking? Mira nodded. They do not use sound. The figure extended something, a limb, perhaps, toward her. You must return, Mira translated quietly. Return where? Ion demanded. She hesitated. To the system. What system? She looked at him again, and this time, there was no delay in her expression. Not your world, she said. Ion shook his head. No, you're not going anywhere. Myra's gaze softened. I was not meant to stay. Then why did you? She paused. The answer seemed difficult. I encountered variants, she said. What does that mean? It means, she said slowly, I changed. The figure pulsed faintly, as if urging her. You must decide, she translated. Ion stepped closer. Mira, you don't have to go with them. She looked at the sea, then at the sky, then back at him. I was sent to observe, she said. To learn your patterns. To determine if your species poses a threat. Ion's heart sank. And she didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm now, completely human. I found something unexpected, she said. What? She searched for the word. Connection. The figure pulsed more urgently. You are deviating, she translated. Return immediately. Myra's expression tightened. For the first time, she looked uncertain. The sea began to stir again. Not violently, but with purpose. Ion realized something. If you go with them, you're not coming back, are you? Myra shook her head. No. And if you stay? She looked at the massive structure. They will not allow it. Ion swallowed. Then don't ask for permission. She blinked. That is not how we function. Maybe it is now, he said. The wind picked up again, the glowing line in the ocean pulsing faster. The figures began to move closer. Myra, Ion said urgently. You said you changed. That means you can choose. She looked at her own hands, flexing her fingers slowly. Choice, she murmured. The word seemed foreign to her. The lead figure extended itself again. Final directive, Myra translated. Return or be reclaimed. Ion stepped in front of her. You're not taking her. The figure didn't react, but the air around them grew heavy. Myra, Ion whispered. What do you want? She looked at him, then at the sea, then at the others like her. For a long moment, she said nothing. And then, I choose to stay. Everything changed. The structure pulsed violently. The ocean roared as if in protest. The figures surged forward, their forms shifting into something sharper, more defined, more dangerous. They will not accept this, Myra said. Ion grabbed her hand. Then we run. There is nowhere to run, she replied. The first figure struck, not physically but with something else. A force rippled through the air, knocking Ion to the ground. Myra didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward. No, she said firmly. The word carried weight. The water stilled. The wind froze. The figures paused. Myra's body began to glow, brighter than before, brighter than the structure behind them. I am no longer part of your system, she said, her voice layered again, stronger, deeper. I am independent. The lead figure pulsed rapidly. Impossible, she translated. Myra shook her head. It is happening. The light around her intensified. The sea began to respond, not to the others, but to her. The waves rose, not in anger, but in alignment. Ion watched in awe. She's controlling it. The figures recoiled. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. Myra stepped forward again. Leave, she said. There was a long, silent moment. Then, the structure began to descend. The glowing line faded. The figures withdrew, retreating back into the depths from which they came. Within minutes, the sea was calm again. As if nothing had happened, Myra collapsed. Ion rushed to her side. Myra. Hey, stay with me. Her glow faded. Her breathing, if it could be called that, was uneven. I am stable, she said weakly. What did you do? She smiled faintly. I chose. Ion let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, you did. She looked at the sea one last time. They will not return, she said. How do you know? Because I am no longer something they understand. Ion helped her sit up. So, what happens now? Myra looked around the village, the people watching from a distance, the familiar shore, the sky above. I learn, she said. Learn what? She met his eyes. How to be human. Years passed. The story of the girl who emerged from the sea spread far beyond the village. Scientists came, researchers asked questions, governments took interest, but Myra remained. She never aged. Not visibly. But she changed. She laughed more easily. She spoke without hesitation. She formed bonds, not just with Aion but with others. She became part of the world she had once been sent to study.